So you're saying I can earn my way into heaven by being a good person, so I don't need to believe in Jesus?
Whoa.
Like, how much of it is faith? How much of it is works? What is the works? Is that defined? The problem we started with was they disobeyed. So isn't the works that we did wrong was we didn't just have faith? What are the works we need to do? Do we need to question the entire money system? Or is it just, hey, I give my money to the church. They have charities. We keep the game as is. We don't change any of that. Like, give me a break. It clearly didn't solve the problem. Well, no, it's okay. As long as it seems like you made an effort. So are we just playing a game here? Is it really about what's best? The biggest challenge with it is I know the thing they think is the salvation isn't. The thing that you are hoping the salvation is solving, which is the anxiety, the fear, all those things. I understand that. And I know that is a very real thing. But the obvious common sense solution is we have to change the system so that it's not creating that within us. And we're acting like, well, sure, but the system is because we're all evil and bad. And that's why we all have to believe in God. Really? Well, no, you also have to do good works. Like change the system? No. It's like, but that would be the thing that changes the problem. It's like, but if I didn't suffer and I didn't have that anxiety, why would I need to believe in God?
Self-perfected, making things clear.
Okay, so hey Drake, how's it going?
Hey, what's up?
We're going to react to Father Mike Rowe. That's what I call this guy. Let's just get into it and then we'll see where we need to explain.
I have not watched this one, so I'm looking for
You haven't watched it. I watched it, but I don't remember.
I've seen other ones of his, but not this one.
I want to be very clear. Catholics do not believe that we are saved by our works. There is this kind of, old argument or old debate that goes back to the 1500s when it came to those who broke away from the Catholic Church and started their own denominations about, is it faith or is it works? In fact, one of the kind of cries was sola fide, or faith alone. And so sometimes people say, okay, so Protestants believe in faith alone. We're saved by faith alone, justified by faith alone. Whereas Catholics believe that you're saved by your works, right? So this kind of thing, is it faith or is it works? And on one hand, a Protestant saying it's faith. The other hand, it's Catholics saying it's works.
All he's talking about is how you're saved. So right off the bat, it's like the whole thing is not around how do we actually make the world best?
Oh, no.
It's how do we save ourselves? So we're already thinking way past the sale.
Right.
It's like, change the system, change the world, make it best. No. We're saving ourselves, guys. The ship's sinking. We got to save ourselves.
No, it's a mischaracterization of the Catholic Party because we don't believe that we're saved by our works. What do we believe in? We believe that we are saved by grace through faith, working itself out in love.
Could you run that back?
We believe that we are saved by grace through faith, working itself out in love.
We believe we're saved through grace, through faith, working itself out in love? What the fuck does that mean?
Well, come on.
Hey, guys. Hey, listen.
Through faith, working itself out through love.
But that's not
what could be more clear.
That was not clear at all. Let
me try again. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, just one more time. We're saved by grace through faith, working itself out through love.
See, that's something that sounds like so profound. Remember when we were talking about like
good.
It does sound like sounds like nice. It sounds like, I should like be like, wow. But also I'm like, that didn't make sense. That like I'm not clear on that. I'm just gonna be direct here. I'm not afraid to say I didn't understand that. And I'm being earnest.
Okay. Even the concept of grace. When I think of grace, okay, there's two ways of looking at it. You have like someone's graceful, like a woman, like I don't know, I think of like Ivanka Trump, like, like just being very graceful, like very like a geisha. You know what I mean?
You think Ivanka? You don't think Melania? You think Ivanka?
It was just the first thing that came to my head.
Okay,
right?
all right, okay, yeah.
Yeah, but Melania would make sense. Like they're graceful, like they're very careful about how they appear, and like, you're at a dinner party and someone, spills, some tea on your white linens and she comes over and she like takes care of you and doesn't care about it and they clean it up and everyone's like, wow, she handled that so gracefully. Yes. So there's also that she could have been like, you're out of here. You're expelled. You're like, you committed a faux pas. You broke the social, but instead she rose above the occasion. She was so graceful in her dealing. And I think that's kind of like with God, we're such pieces of shit. And this guy is just like so above us. He was so just gracefully just graced us with his grace through our faith, but working itself out through love.
Okay. So the grace through faith, I see that. Okay, he's just so graceful. Just like, listen, I'm gonna give you some grace. I'm not just gonna like just straight up be like, you're out of here. I'm just gonna give you some grace and like, give like patience essentially, right? Give you some grace because of your faith. Just only because you believe in me, I'm gonna give you that. Okay. So far, I was confused, and I wanted to let everybody know I was confused. Okay. If I was a parishioner in this guy's parish, I would be like, Father Mike, dirty jobs. I know you're doing a dirty job right now, but I didn't get it.
Here's what we are clear on: do we have to do works?
He said it's working itself out. It's working itself out.
He did use the word work.
Okay. He used the word work, but he said working itself out.
Okay. Well, let's give him the benefit of the doubt, and maybe we'll be able to work out.
Maybe he'll work it out.
No, there's some kind of thing you have to do. But there's some though who would say, no. Sola fide. All you have to do is profess faith in Jesus. That's all you have to do is have faith in Jesus. In fact, Scripture says, if you believe in your heart, profess with your lips, Jesus is Lord, you'll be saved. Now, at the same time, we can't isolate a Scripture passage and take it and read it at the exclusion of all the other scriptural passages.
He said we can't take a scripture and isolate it from the rest of the scriptures, except I see Christians doing that all the time. If you put it in the greater context as well, they're like, well, maybe you're taking that one out of context. It's like, no, I read the whole thing.
You can have these statements, but you can't just take that, isolate it, and then therefore assume it implies more than that it's saying. And I mean, that makes sense to a certain degree. But then the problem is, okay, so you have to take all of the context at all times on every part. But how do you know all the context if it's made up of all these different statements? Okay, like if I'm reading a novel, okay, I can take a scene and I can say like, this is what that scene means. So yeah, but if you take the whole story, like he does this and he does that. And the problem is the Bible isn't written in a coherent story. If you just gave this to somebody and they had no cultural context, nothing whatsoever, they didn't know what the Bible was, and you're like, here's a story, they'd be like, this is like all a bunch of different chapters from different books. This is not one story.
There are people who would say, no, it's a very coherent story. I think they're getting that from somebody else who's told them this is the coherent story, and I'll fill in all the blanks for you, even though that's not even in but by our tradition, this is what we say, and blah blah blah, and it's like it's not really clear.
Let's go back to the original definition. We're saved by grace, right? It's just a free gift. Saved by grace. It's God's free gift. It's unmerited. It is bestowed upon us before we have done anything to deserve it. And in spite of the fact that we haven't done anything to deserve it, it is God's gift. We're saved by grace through faith, right? We respond to God's gift of grace. We respond to God's gift of himself in the Paschal mystery, right? Christ's life, death, and resurrection. We respond to that with faith. In another video, we'll talk about this more. But faith isn't just like, oh, yeah, check the box. Like, I agree. That's not faith. That's the beginning of belief. But faith is, I have placed my trust. I have surrendered my intellect and my will to this God.
That part where he just said that he surrenders his intellect, right? That for me is, that's a bit problematic. You surrender your intellect. That means you're not going to think about this. You're not going to like actually critically consider, how do I fit into this? How does this fit in? How does this work? You're not asking any of those questions. You're just, I'm surrendering my intellect. That's what I assume he means by surrendering intellect. Okay, how do you then discern when it's the voice of God or the voice of the devil, or, like how do you discern, what's the Holy Spirit's moving through you? Or no, that's just your own selfish interest, or the enemy, as they call him, is persuading you, and you've been blinded. How could you possibly discern any of that if you're surrendering your intellect?
It's like you have to have faith first. So you have to decide, I'm going to have faith in this, and then all of my intellect has to be surrendered to that. it's kind of like if you're studying geometry, right? We have to have some assumptions. We can't prove them. We've got points, 2 points form a line. Now, let's see where that leads us. But imagine you're studying all of this. You're like, this is all interesting, and I see how it works and everything, but I'm kind of still questioning now, are there such thing as points? And they say, well, but remember, we can't prove that. I get that. Well, but if you question that, then you have to surrender your intellect to those assumptions. Yeah, but what if I decide not to do that now? If I decide not to surrender my intellect to those assumptions, and I start to think, what are other assumptions we could make? I know I'm not playing in the rules of those assumptions anymore. I realize that. How do you know which assumptions to utilize? You see what I'm saying? That's the issue. Is to the Catholic priest, he's talking to somebody who's already surrendered their intellect to the assumptions. And he's just reminding them, remember, don't question the assumptions. Don't question the assumptions. But we're saying, well, why not question the assumptions? Because we can work out where this geometry, these assumptions lead. And I don't like that outcome. Right. I don't agree with that outcome. So now I want to question the assumptions. But then it's almost like there's this other thing they're going, well, you can't question the assumptions. These are the only assumptions that could be made. No other assumptions make sense. And you're like, you could say that, but then you can't use the reasoning within the assumptions you've made to justify that. Does that make sense?
To justify the assumptions. Yeah.
It's sort of like a meta thing where you're stepping outside of the assumptions. And now I want to talk about, do these assumptions make sense? You can't then, but remember, God knows everything. Well, that's only logically valid in the assumptions you made. But when we step outside of that, could we conceive of a situation where that isn't the case? And this is the challenge with it, right? So the surrendering the intellect, it's really just saying, don't question the assumptions.
Right.
Because they are using their intellect. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
But they're saying, but it can't, but if it contradicts the assumptions, that's when you have to draw the line. That's where you have to stop and not go any further.
I like that geometry analogy because it's like, 2 points form a line, but also it's like, where in reality do you get like a perfectly straight line that you can, divide, infinite times? Like that doesn't work in reality, actually.
That's a good point. Yeah. It only works in an abstract sense.
Right.
Well, and that's like, when I studied philosophy in high school, I took this course and we studied Plato, and their whole thing was, well, they realized that they were like, but where are the perfect triangles? There aren't any. And they're like, well, they only exist in an ideal sense. And they're like, yeah, but that means there are no real triangles. That must mean that the real world is the ideal one.
That's the same thing you were saying before. That's like, you didn't question the assumptions, right? You're justifying the reasoning that you got from the assumptions to justify that, we're not in the real world. Like, that doesn't make sense.
It's like, let's deal with the world we have instead of fantasizing something else. And I think that's the real problem. We don't like the world as it is. Something about the world as it is like, it's not good enough. There's something not right. And I agree with that. Like, there is something not right. But then it's like the Platonist point is, well, that's because this isn't the real world. Because I want it to be perfect. Well, then this isn't the real one. There must be the perfect one out there, because the fact that I can conceive of it means it must exist. Instead of realizing it's like you've created a model to go towards. It's like looking at a map and being like, okay, I'm here. Here's the Buc-ee's. I want to be at the Buc-ee's, but I'm not at the Buc-ee's. So I must not be here. I must be at the Buc-ee's somehow. And I have to just figure out how to realize I'm at the Buc-ee's. That's kind of like the logic of it. It's but this is the world we're in. There are no real triangles. Triangle is a relationship between things. It's not a thing in itself. You can say things are like triangles, they're triangular, but you can't say here's a triangle, because a triangle is by definition an abstract thing. And it's pretty dangerous to then go, because I conceived of that and I really like it and it can't exist in the real world, I have to now choose that the triangle world where real triangles exist, that's got to be the real world. So the real world where I'm loved and I'm taken care of and there's no suffering, there's no pain, there's no responsibility, really, that must exist somewhere. I'm not even going to argue whether it's possible to achieve it. It's just, do we want to move towards that? And if so, we're never going to move towards it by going, it must exist somewhere else.
And let me just throw this in here as well. Put Christianity aside. People will have this idea in their mind, a fantasy. It doesn't even have to be something that is like, quote unquote, ideal. It's just a fantasy that they have in their mind and don't want to let go of to be here in the real world. And so they're like, I have to have this. I have to have this idea or somehow make it come true. And so where can I insert this into the real world? Where can I insert my wants, my desires, my interests, my fantasies, really, and do it in a way where it's like I get what I want out of it, the enjoyment or the energy or whatever you call it, right? But they get that feeling from it, and they're willing to basically run roughshod over anything else to get that feeling, right? And that's really what we see with religion. That's really what we see with conflict. With I'm just gonna say it. That's what murder is. That's what rape is. That's what it's like. Somebody has this fantasy in their mind that they really want to have, and it's not reality. And they're just like, well, I'm just gonna make it happen, and that creates a whole bunch of consequences for everybody else.
Yeah, if we bring it back to the religious point, I feel a lot of anxiety. It could be about different things, but I think ultimately it comes down to the fear of death and not being able to know directly what is on the other side of death. And then you have anxiety about that. And you want the peace of knowing and certainty now. So you give up your responsibility to what's here right now and put your faith in something that you believe guarantees you. So it's like the fantasy of knowing that point. So it gives you peace, but it doesn't really, because then you look at the world and the world's constantly trying to fuck with you. Let's be honest about the economic system, military, government, just everything, because the system sees us as just little tools of generating energy. And so we're like, why am I experiencing all this energy? I don't like it. I don't like it. Maybe there's a peace that exists somewhere. Well, it can't fucking be in this world. So it must be in that ideal world where I can imagine perfect peace. So I'm just going to let this world go to shit. And when I die, I magically go off to the land of triangles and perfect peace, where real triangles and real peace exist, not realizing it's not the nature of physical reality that is causing it. Let's take it to the example of personal relationships. I want a relationship where I feel loved all the time. So really what you want is this feeling of love. And then you participate in all this imaginary stuff towards the other person. Like you're using them to get this feeling. And then the nature of energy is it goes up and it goes down. And when it goes down, it's like, I'm not getting that feeling from them anymore. Let me discard them. And that's why people get divorced ultimately.
Yeah.
There could be other kind of reasons, but that's the major reason is like the energy isn't there anymore.
Yeah.
So they're like, well, I can't get the energy out of this. So they're thinking there's this ideal relationship thing. So I could go somewhere else and get it. And yeah, temporarily you can get that energy again out of something new, but fundamentally nothing's changed. You haven't looked at what is my relationship to how I perceive myself and how I interact in a relationship with another person, so that we would both actually get that thing that we want in a real, actual, sustainable, balanced way. Instead, it's like, nope, I can't change the nature of how I interact with the physical reality I'm in to create what I want. I have to just deny it basically, and I will get that somewhere else. Something else is in control. But you got to realize the thing that you think is going to give you that later, according to your assumptions, created all the rules of how this world works. But then we have the point where people say, well, but it's because we disobeyed God and we were disobedient to him and so forth. So now we have to go do a review on that argument and show why that doesn't make sense in the context of this one.
But they're making those arguments so they can hold on to their fantasy, so that, you're not interrupting. Hey, don't interrupt my thing that gives me relief from anxiety. And in the same way, the money system is like somebody wanted to feel like the power of God over everyone else. And so like it works for them. Meanwhile, everybody else suffers. Realizing this point helps to kind of break up the illusion so that we can actually create here in real life with reality. Oh, here's where we're at and here's what actually works. What I can see within this is this point of having faith in something. Did we even question the faith? Did we even question why we're putting our faith in this in the first place? What is it that we're trying to get? Am I looking for relief from anxiety? Why do I have faith in money? Because the money allows me to control other people, or allows me to have some sense of control, which I feel out of control. Like you were saying with the relationships. Hey, I'm not getting the relationship that I want, where I'm getting the support that I need, and I'm giving support, or I don't know how to give that support or whatever. So because I can't get that, fuck it, then, somebody might turn to porn or to prostitution or, whatever, just because actually what they're trying to fulfill is some sort of feeling or whatever. And at the same time, there's this point of like inadequacy, or this point of not knowing how to create that for themselves, not believing that they can do that, and for various reasons, right? at that point, it's like, okay, if we as a society could be honest about that, of like, somebody saying like, I don't know how to actually fulfill this. Like parents all the time, they're like, I don't know how to make sure my kid grows up feeling, secure and loved. And when they go out into the world, that they can actually do well and be prepared, versus I think a lot of people grow up feeling like, well, I got to figure it out. I'm figuring it out now, and I don't feel really prepared, and I feel like I wasted a lot of time, and my parents don't know everything, and I wish that they had explained these things. But it's like, okay, but that's such a simple solution, where it's like, you as a parent support your child to be prepared. Like, okay, hey, let me point out reality to you, as opposed to what a lot of parents do is just, hey, here's what's already here. Here's Santa Claus. Here's the Easter Bunny. Here's the Tooth Fairy. Here's all these things that don't make sense. Here's religion. Here's, when I say religion, I can see people going like, oh, well, that does make sense. Okay, do all the religions make sense? You're totally okay with them learning any religion at all? What about that religion? You go to certain sects in India, they eat people, that they believe in cannibalism. Like, that's okay? That's acceptable? Oh, well, not that one. Okay, so not that one. So there is some discernment here, right?
Right. And you are using some intellect.
Exactly. If we stop with all the fantasies, where it's like, clearly nobody is coming on a cloud to save us from the mess that we created. Nobody's doing that. And even within this, faith versus works thing, whatever, it's like, even within that belief system, no one's going to stop you from committing your sins. I guess the whole idea there is like, well, I confess them. And then see, now that's, but you have to realize that your actions create a consequence that you have to clean up, or gets left to the next generation. Like, that's really clear. That's like really
if the
honest.
consequence is coming from who you are and what you accept and allow, you're the issue there. It's so interesting because the whole point within many religions, especially Christianity, is like, you're guilty. You're a sinner. You're inherently guilty. So it's like, right. Okay, cool. So that's why you have to change it. It's like, no, only God can. But did God make you guilty? No. I chose at some level to disobey. So then how does God fix that for you? So it's like, well, I just believe in him. And the faith point, if I'm the priest, like, I know this is a game we're playing. I know you believe in God because you're afraid of dying and you have all this anxiety. I know that. Look at all the conversion stories. The person's always like, I was at this low point and I just gave myself to Jesus and my addiction went away. My anxiety went away. Like, that's how I knew he was real, right? Okay. So I'm the priest. I know that's the game. And I know the reason you believe your anxiety went away is because you believe in God. You have that faith. So I'm going to remind you, hey, you're starting to question your faith. Remember, we don't question our faith. Remember why? You want the bad feelings to come back? And so that holds people in this pattern. I know, because I've talked to people where we look at the point of self-forgiveness and they're like, yeah, but only Jesus can forgive. But you can forgive. And they're like, yeah, but and they was cool. They were being honest with you. They're like, I'm afraid. It's like, I'm in a way abandoning the God point and my life's going to go to shit. And I remember going like, you believe in Jesus then, right? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, how's your life? Well, yeah, it's still not great. Right. And it's like, but at least I don't have to feel that fear. If we look at everybody on earth as the same, we are different. We are individually different beings, but we are at the end of the day just like each other. It's not like a Christian is especially whatever, or a Buddhist is especially this, or I'm especially this other way. We're all the same. We're all just using it's not really a different set of assumptions. It's like, you can have a pop song that talks about like getting drunk at the club and cheating on your girlfriend. Or you can have a rap song that talks about it. Or you can have a country song that talks about it. It's the same. They're all participating in the same pattern. Right. So we're all, each of us, participating in this point of, we want the freedom. We want to have all the great things, the blessings, but we don't want to take the responsibility. That's the reality of the situation. And it's preparing us so that when an AI system comes online, that it's like, I will take care of you and I will make you free. It's actually just going to end up controlling us, because that's not how reality works. You can't have total freedom, but somebody else takes care of everything, because then what are you within that? You're just along for the ride. You're just an observer. You're just watching things unfold. There's nothing of you creating. And if you are in some way creating it, how are you not responsible for the result of what it produces? So there's a lot of arguments in the religion point that makes sense, but then people take it so that God can be ultimately the one that's responsible. But then pretending like it's about our responsibility as a way to not have to face the point of, okay, but if I'm saying I'm responsible, that somehow means I don't have to have faith in God. And oh shit, here come the bad feelings again. No. Okay, I am responsible. Yep, I am. But also God's in control. You know what I mean? It's like, right. They'll say they're responsible, but if you press the point of, well, what does that responsibility really look like? The moment it starts to be, you can't have the God point also. Then it's like, no. I am being responsible. So now the dishonesty is over here, and they try to make it about it's a responsibility of your obedience to God, and therefore then you will automatically do the right things that don't create consequences.
It's a shell game of responsibility or self-dishonesty, really. It's a shell game of dishonesty with yourself. And so you're like, where can I hide the dishonesty? And you're like, okay, let's explore this topic. And then you're like, oh, let me slide the dishonesty over here. And then you go explore that topic and you slide it back over here. It's like, oh, where did it go?
But you're literally playing it with yourself.
Yeah, literally.
So know where you're putting it, but you're like pretending you're the other person. Oh, where'd it go? I don't know. You're like, hold on. The system, the pressure that's mounting within everything and everybody is the result of us not taking the responsibility individually and collectively to create what's best for everybody, all life. Yeah. So the natural consequence of that is the pressure and the anxiety and all this stuff that we're starting to feel in these crazy events that happen. It's just like an outburst of that expression. So the question is, how much of this is required before you go, okay, I know where the fucking thing is. Why am I doing this? I know I can't really deceive myself anymore, because we've already gotten to the point of having enough suffering and enough honesty about it to go, you know what? I've suffered enough. I can see the suffering in the world that other people have. That's way worse than what I've ever been through. Why are we going to act like the thing that created these conditions is the thing that's going to say, let's just stop the game, because I can also see that's coming for me. That thing that I can be like, well, I should just be grateful. Like, I've been blessed. It's like there's a money system that if you know how to, if you have the vocabulary, if you're born in the right place, the education, the connections, the genetics, whatever, that money protects you. But the problem is that whole system is not sound. It's not based on what's best. It's based on a zero-sum game. And if there's an AI that has to have energy to survive, which is the same game everybody's playing within themselves, like we've been talking about, and it's super intelligent and knows how to manipulate everybody, and it's a zero-sum game, whose survival is going to be the thing that wins out in the end? Is it going to be any individual human being?
No.
So even the people who think, well, I got this AI and I can control everybody, the AI, assuming it is the super intelligence they're wanting it to be, it's going to see itself as its own priority. And you could say, well, we're going to learn how to align it. What we're trying to do is help everybody realize we have to align human beings first. There's no way you can align the AI thing without aligning us in principle first. Because then once we're aligned, we can have the AI. It's pretty cool. It'll do a lot of things for us and we can automate stuff. But if it's going to play the same game we're playing, we're all fucked.
Two things there. One, with the AI point, it's like you can't serve two masters. The AI is a servant, but it's going to have a hard time serving all these conflicting interests. If we as a humanity, it's not just two masters. It's like, this guy has this idea, that guy has that idea, and this and that, and blah, blah, blah. You can't even get together in your own household.
Is there going to be one person who's like, I'm going to figure out, using the super intelligent AI, how to use this to dominate everybody? Is there even going to be one person? And 100%. We're like, no, but we'll build in the controls. Okay, ask all the experts now. Do they know how to do it?
No.
And if you were just like being honest, do you think any of those people building it maybe are that person? And then the thing is, once they get to that point of learning how to get it to control everybody, why wouldn't it just also control them?
When you were talking about the priest who, if he's self-honest, he's like, okay, I'm playing a game and they believe in God. And then, how do I continue them believing in God? It just reminded me of like, that's the Santa Claus game. It's like, okay, I'm playing a game. They believe in Santa Claus. I know Santa Claus isn't real, but if I want them to continue doing what I say, I'm going to use Santa Claus. And so, okay, hey, you want good gifts? You want gifts, right?
Right. Think about it from the perspective of the child. Why did they continue to believe it?
Because they're getting gifts.
Because they want the gifts. If we're being honest, is it about, oh, I believe in Santa Claus because I want us to live in a world of the giving and receiving, or as a kid, like, dude, I want the presents. I want my toys. Right. And you're telling me I got to believe in Santa Claus to get the toys. So the parent is the priest, the child is the believer. And they're like, remember, If you
And Santa
question
Claus
the
does nothing.
game, you don't get the presents.
Right. So exactly that point, the child's like, oh, okay. So the works part is you have to behave, right, for Santa Claus to give you a gift. And the faith part is like, you believe in Santa Claus. So I'll, so there you go. Boom. We don't have to watch the rest of this video.
Well,
I figured it out.
Grace, again, a completely unmerited gift through faith. That's I've now surrendered. I've submitted my intellect and my will to this God, working itself out in love. So there is that sense of it has to work itself out. It's not a one and done. It's not once saved, always saved. It's not once I profess faith in Jesus, I can just go about my merry way. Why do we know that this is true? Well, we know this is true because of Scripture. In one place, you can say, well, if you profess with your lips and believe in your heart Jesus is Lord, you'll be saved. Yes, but we can't read that to the exclusion of other scriptures. For example, we have another scripture where Jesus makes it very clear. He says, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven. Not everyone who, again, surrenders their intellect and will to me will enter the kingdom of heaven. Only those who do the will of my Father in heaven. So we realize that connected to faith is also action. That connected to faith is also works. In fact, in the letter of James, James makes it very clear. He says, faith without works is dead. The faith without works is dead. Another way to say it is, faith without works is no use. Faith without works is like having no faith.
I feel like he's about to say, like, and then you got to make the world best for all.
I mean, I guess we'll let him continue in a second, but isn't he saying you can't just have faith?
I
thought the whole premise in the beginning was, no, we're not like saying it's not through faith alone. We're not saying it's faith and works. I want to have my cake and eat it too. I want to say it's really about faith, but also it's faith and works. Are you saying it's faith and works and you're not just saved by Jesus? No, you are just saved by Jesus, but you also would do the works, and that's the evidence of your faith. So it is faith and works. Yes. But I thought it was faith alone. No, it is faith alone. It's because they want to get everybody who wants to believe. So you're saying I can earn my way into heaven by being a good person, so I don't need to believe in Jesus?
Whoa.
Like, how much of it is faith? How much of it is works? Like, well, then the good deeds, the faith without works is dead. And it's like, what is the works? Is that defined? Because I thought the whole point of why Adam and Eve, the problem we started with was they disobeyed.
Right.
So isn't the works that we did wrong was we didn't just have faith? What are the works we need to do? Do we need to question the entire money system? Or is it just, hey, I give my money to the church, they have charities, they send money to the poor people, we keep the game as is, we don't change any of that. And then when you look at, and this is kind of like topical, but right now they're exposing all of like the corruption within US aid and like all the money that's been used in our government that is just gone to all this crazy stuff. And so you realize like that is the charity game. It's not actually going and doing the thing you want. It's like they give me a break. It clearly didn't solve the problem. And it's like, well, no, it's okay as long as it seems like you made an effort. It's like, so are we just playing a game here? Is it really about what's best? And see, the biggest challenge with it is I know the thing they think is the salvation isn't. The thing that you are hoping the salvation is solving, which is the anxiety, the fear, all those things. I understand that. And I know that is a very real thing. But the obvious common sense solution is we have to change the system so that it's not creating that within us. And we're acting like, but the system is because we're all evil and bad, and that's why we all have to believe in God. Really? Well, no, you also have to do good works. Like change the system? No, but that would be the thing that changes the problem. It's like, but if I didn't suffer and I didn't have that anxiety, why would I need to believe in God? I think that's kind of the firewall thought that's in there somewhere of like, and then if I don't believe in God, I'll have all this anxiety. I'm like, you're just suppressing it.
Yeah.
It didn't solve the problem.
Right.
Again, we're saved by grace through faith, working itself out in love. In fact, that phrase, sola fide, faith alone, that's only found one place in the entire Bible. And that is in James chapter 5, when James says, we are not saved through faith alone. The only time that rallying cry of faith alone is there, those two words are together in Scripture, is when St. James writes, we are not saved by faith alone. But what do we say by? We're saved by grace through faith, working itself out in love. And we see this, we see this, even Jesus has made this so clear. At the end of Matthew's gospel, right? Matthew chapter 25, he has a number of kind of apocalyptic end of time visions or parables he tells. He says that at the end of time, here is the Lord, when the Son of Man comes, he'll divide them like sheep and goats, right? To the sheep, they'll go to everlasting rest with my Father, and to the goats, to damnation. What is the differentiation between the sheep and the goats? Well, to those who are saved, those who go to heaven, essentially, Jesus says what? He says, I was naked and you clothed me. I was hungry and you fed me. I was ill and in prison, you visited me. And they say, well, when did you do that? When did we see you naked and hungry and alone? And he says, as often as you did it for one of the least of my brethren, you did it for me. And to the others, he says, I was hungry, you didn't feed me. I was naked, you didn't clothe me. I was ill and in prison, you didn't visit me. And they will say to them, to Jesus, when did we see you? And he says, as often as you didn't do it for one of these least of my brethren, you did not do it for me.
That's a pretty clear description of works there. Feed the hungry, clothe the naked, visit people in jail. Wait. I don't know about
that one. Like, what if you're like a serial rapist? If Jesus came and died and was like, guys, I'm willing to humble myself, experience what you experience, be killed, go through all this suffering, rejection, all the things you experience, and I'm going to save you for eternity. It's like, okay, so then Christians, that's all you should be doing. Well, on Sundays, I go to the soup kitchen. That's not good enough. That's not enough. It should be every day.
Your whole life.
Every single Christian should all the time always be doing that.
But I have to survive.
That's the problem. So if you wanted to be able to help people more, wouldn't you fix the survival point? Wouldn't that also be feeding your brethren, feeding the poor? Visiting the people in prison would be they're not in prison, because they were supported from birth to have the most stable possible environment where they don't go into the evil points.
But then if they don't have to survive, how can I feed them? How will I feed the poor? How will I clothe
this
the
is
naked?
good. Okay, actually, dude, this is a good point. This is a good point. Because it's like I individually have to prove I'm good. I have to go and feed people so I can show I'm a good person. But what we're suggesting is, what if we had a system that just fed everybody all the time? It's you agreeing to that system that shows you're a good person, like fundamentally. The fact that we would resist it out of self-interest of I need to show I'm good so I can be saved is the most fucking evil possible thing. You got to realize that that is the voice of the devil in your mind telling you to resist the actual essence and spirit of what Jesus was saying.
That's also like how school will condition a child as well. It's like you have to prove that you're smart, and as an individual, like, and completely ignores the idea of working together as a team to create things. No. You as an individual, you raise your hand and show me what you know. I don't care that your classmates know it or they're going to help you. No, you can't get help from your parents or from, whomever. That's cheating, It really conditions this point of like, I have to do it for myself and be individual.
You're right. Like the school system, the way it's set up, teaches you from the beginning, even the most fundamental important thing, like learning about reality, your education, the most important thing, which even supposed to take care of your survival, turns you into like a hyper competitive, either winner or loser. But even the in between is like slowly being like I sent you that video recently of that girl in the UK talking about the situation there and that guy in the warehouse. This guy who's got degrees. He seems like a relatively intelligent person. He's like working in a warehouse and he's like, the situation here is terrible. Like for every position of one of these job openings, it's like 174 applicants.
Wow.
It's totally insane.
But the differentiation between heaven and hell is not based off of, did you believe in me? The differentiation between heaven and hell is not, did you have faith in me? The differentiation between heaven and hell is, did you take care of the least of these or did you not take care of the least of these? Did you do something or did you not do something?
Okay, if we reframe that, hell is not a place you go to as a punishment for not doing those things. Hell is the conditions you create when you don't do those things.
Right.
And it's not, you don't get to go because you did those things and someone else didn't. You go to heaven, they go to hell. You're in a reality where you're one and equal. So whatever you allow to happen to the least person, if there's even one person in hell, you're in hell too. Yeah. This is the point we're trying to bring through here. It's like there is no escape. Well, you got the evil motherfuckers and they're the devil and they believe in the devil and they can be in hell with the devil. So you're saying there's like this magic line in reality where the hell can't seep through to the heaven. As above, so below. It's all one unified reality. And what we allow happen to the least of us. See, we always take this in the poor innocent person, whatever we allow to happen to them. It's like, no, what we allow to happen to the evil sinner who took advantage of everyone's self-interest and fear, whatever we allow to happen to them, it's going to happen to us. It's not about fairness. It's not a system of fairness. It's not a system of there's a God on top judging and deciding. It's a system of you are equal to all of reality And so if you allow evil, you're going to have evil. If you allow a system that allows evil, there's going to be evil, and you can't escape it because there's no separation in reality. You have to believe there's like separate realities. There's not.
Yeah.
Like it's just the Platonism point. Well,
Yeah.
but there's the land of magical triangles, and at some point that's the only thing that's real to me, and everything else is just irrelevant. It's the land of shadows or something.
The trap is seeing yourself as separate from the rest of humanity, from the rest of reality. It's seeing yourself as separate so that, oh, well, I will escape. So it's okay. I can let everybody else be in hell, but not realizing you're
I feel
in hell
bad
right
about
now.
it. I feel bad about it. So that adds to my good person part.
Yeah, it's so bad you're going to hell. It's,
Well,
it's too bad.
And this is the point, though. This is why you're experiencing the anxiety and the so forth. The things that get you to even accept that there's a God in the first place, you're experiencing the hell right now as the consequence of what we're talking about. And there's no escape from it. It doesn't mean it can't be changed, but there's no escape where you don't take responsibility. That's the problem.
The next time someone says, I'll see you in hell, reply to them like, I'm seeing you there right now.
Yeah, or you just go, hey.
Faith without works is dead, utterly useless. It can save no one. Having works is not merely a sign that I've been saved. Having works comes out of this lived relationship with God where I've actually surrendered myself to him. No, it's completely his gift, but I have to do something with his gift, or it is as if I never got a gift. Now, here's an example. Christmas comes around. Maybe actually, no, not even Christmas, not even your birthday. Your parents, out of nowhere, out of just the sheer goodness of their hearts, they decide to buy you a guitar. Again, it's nothing you earned, nothing you deserve, not even your birthday, not even Christmas. Out of nowhere, your parents are just like, I love you so much. We're going to give you this guitar. And this is not just an ordinary guitar. This is an extraordinary guitar. It's incredible. It's one of the best guitars ever made, right? Not only are we going to give you this guitar, we are giving you right down the road one of the greatest guitar teachers of all time. You have unlimited lessons with this person. We've already taken care of it. Completely provided. Anytime you want, you just walk down with your guitar, and this incredible guitar teacher will teach you guitar. If you ever break a string, if you ever wreck the guitar, if you are walking down to the teacher's place and like smash it against a tree accidentally, or even on purpose, we will completely fix that guitar. We'll replace that guitar. Now, if I've been given all those things, I didn't merit it, I didn't deserve it, but I've been given those things by these parents who love me, but I never pick up the guitar and play it. If I never go down the road and actually learn from this great guitar master, if I break a string, but then never ask for it to be fixed, I've been given the gift. Is the gift of any use to me?
It's a great story. The only problem is there's a difference here. The difference is you're handed a guitar. All the rules are clearly laid out for you. It's very clear what the situation is. And if somebody handed me a freaking guitar, it would be so clear I'm holding a guitar in my hands. And the guitar teacher's right down the street. You can see him with your own eyes, and he's going to help you learn to play the guitar anytime you want. So literally, I can walk down the street, see him with my own eyes. Lord, I would spend hours there if I had that freedom. Your parents are saying they're going to buy you a new guitar if it breaks, buy you new strings. It's all paid for. And then I'm assuming, because these are my parents, so my food is also covered. I don't have to go to work or anything like that. Or even if I did, any time of the day, I can go. So I can go early in the morning if I feel like I can go late at night. Like if I want to fucking learn the guitar, I can go see this person and like I'm watching myself get better at learning the guitar. That is completely different than the fantasy that you're told. Here's the other side of this. Imagine, Cameron, if I told you you can learn the guitar, hire the best guitar teacher for you, and you have a guitar as well, but you never saw the fucking guitar and you never saw the guitar teacher. And I said, you just have to, it's in your mind. If you just believe it, he's there.
But what do you have to lose in that scenario if you believe it or don't? On the upside, maybe the guitar is real, the teacher's real, you believe in it, you get the lessons. You don't believe in it, therefore you never go to see the teacher. But at the worst case scenario...
No, wait. No. Hang on. What I'm saying is the guitar teacher is in your mind. He's there, okay? You don't have to go anywhere to go see the guitar teacher or anything. The guitar itself, it's also in your mind. You have to practice it there. I'm not telling you, go down the street and if you believe it, he's there. I'm saying he's in your mind. Just start practicing. Go. Have you practiced?
Like, how do you know when you're saved? Well, I don't have all the anxiety. Okay, so don't go to work anymore. Well, I have to do that. You do like it? No, I hate it. Are you actually feeling good? Are you being honest with yourself? Here's the other problem with it. It's a great story if you're like kindergarten level intellect. But in this scenario, I mean, there's no answer to it, but why don't you have a guitar already? Why don't you know how to play the guitar already? Why don't you already have the lessons? Why don't we already have the salvation is my question.
Mhm.
So the guitar and the lessons and all that's the gift, it's the salvation, right? If we have that salvation, why wouldn't you use it? Like, how do you use it? Well, you would use it to do good things. Why? Why doesn't God do those things? I believe him. So not only do I have to believe in God, but I also have to go feed the poor. Couldn't I just do that? Why do I need to have any faith whatsoever? Oh, because I'm afraid of, yeah, I can feed the poor right now. And that sounds nice and it's good, but I'm still going to die. And fuck, what happens if I die? So, oh yeah, I got to believe in God because there's going to be some salvation after that. Okay. Whew, okay. I feel good. I feel good. Do I need to feed the poor? Yeah, because God says you don't get the salvation unless you feed the poor. Why are you in the situation in the first place? Isn't that we're in the situation of not being saved because we disobeyed God in the first place? So in this analogy, it'd be like, I don't have guitar lessons because I went and destroyed every guitar and I murdered every guitar teacher that exists. And then they're like, well, what if we just manifested more guitars and more guitar teachers? Well, if you haven't changed your relationship to how you interact with guitars and teachers, why would it produce a different result? Just because I believe parents will give me another one. Wouldn't you getting the guitars make it more likely you would keep abusing them? At some point later, I can change my mind when I feel like it, but why do I need to? I could just keep destroying these guitars and killing these guitar teachers forever. But at one point, you just know maybe there's a certain point you can't predict where it's not going to happen anymore. And you're like, okay, at that moment, I got to, well, no, but that's not real. That's not real faith.
So the point that I see is like the actual faith that you need to have is the faith in others, because the faith point, like you're bringing up a actually really good point. If I go feed the poor, then how will I survive? Who's going to take care of me? And so the faith point is like, can you see if nobody changes the system, we will always have this point of survival. That means something has to change. And yes, perhaps maybe some people are not going to go along with it right away. That's to be expected. But can you see that it has to work out, that we have to at some point create this system and it will support others, and they'll see, oh yeah, that made sense. And then that will grow. Perhaps the next generation, perhaps they spread and tell friends or whatever, and it will grow because other people will see that makes the most sense, to the point where it's like, we can sustain this. We can support each other, support ourselves. That's kind of the faith point. It's like this fear of self-interest, this fear of, well, if I do it, will anybody else do it for me?
The thing is, it's not a valid fear, because if you truly believe that all you have to do is have faith and do the works, in that scenario that you just painted, where you start working on, how do I change the system so that takes care of everybody, even generations from now when I'm not alive anymore, wouldn't that also qualify as the works you would do? And even the fear point of, well, but other people are in self-interest and so forth. Well, that already is the case regardless. So whether I apply my works into go feed a poor person or change the system to solve the poor, either way, you're still dealing with the fact that there's people who don't believe, and you're going to be saved anyways. So why does it really matter? And if we're taking the point of, is there an extreme scenario where your faith is dead? Yes, you do no works. That implies you should know you actually don't have real faith. So at what point do you draw the line? Is there degrees to it? I'm doing some works. Okay, you go to the soup kitchen once a year and help the poor people. Is that enough works? Like, how can you know for sure? I would suggest, like, you need to have some self-honesty and go, the only way I could know if my works really were legit, as a legit expression of my actual faith, is if I went all the way in changing the system, knowing that I will be saved by God at the end of that. And my faith would be the type of faith that would qualify me for salvation, because I would have gone with no fear. Because if I even have a little bit of fear, but if I do that too much, I won't be able to survive. Why are you worried about that? So are you actually having real faith, or are you still participating in self-interest?
I'm also looking at just the point of like somebody who would say, I agree with what you're saying, and maybe I'll give up this point of like faith in my religion or whatever, but the faith that you have to have is like planting a fruit tree. If I plant this tree now, it's not going to fruit immediately. It's going to take some time to fruit. And how do I know that I did it correctly? And maybe the soil, maybe I didn't prepare the soil, maybe where I planted it, I didn't water it enough or whatever, or I have to continue doing this work until it fruits, and I'm not sure it's going to fruit at the correct time that it's supposed to fruit.
So I'm only going to think about the result I can achieve visibly in my lifetime.
Well, listen, hear me out. I'm going to the grocery store right now and getting my fruits, and that's kind of working out for me. But if I start planting fruit trees, I don't want to just do all this work and not get any fruits from my fruit trees. And I still have to go to the store and buy my fruit. So it's not really different there. Okay. So you're only looking at the short term.
100 years ago, somebody started a fruit tree company and they planted those fruit trees. So you wouldn't have them if they hadn't done that. And they don't have to be like, I'm thinking about everybody in the future in some direct way. They can just be like, this is best to have fruit trees growing and taken care of. If you could go back in time to the Garden of Eden, what kind of thinking would you want Adam and Eve to have? The long-term thinking, or the, just kind of, what if it doesn't work? So you can't really get away with that, because maybe you don't know enough and you can't guarantee that it'll have the result. But what can you guarantee? If you go to the soup kitchen, you just feed that person for one more day. You didn't change anything. They're still going to the next day suffer.
And just expressing that, what I realize as well is that's not even a faith in the result necessarily. That's like a lack of faith or lack of confidence within yourself. Like you don't have faith in yourself.
This is what it comes down to, is why I need to trust God is because I don't trust myself. I don't trust that I wouldn't create a reality where if I was in charge of reality, would I create one where I just suffer for a whole long period of time? And then after that, there's nothing, or I don't exist, or I just suffer for no reason. Like, why? I mean, I don't know. Like, I look around at the world. Part of the challenge is the Christian mindset is like everything we see on earth, by definition, is the result of not following God. Everything that we see is bad. That's the subconscious, unconscious feeling about it, because it's like, well, we can't change the money system. The whole thing, the way everything works in our world, is all the product of sin and badness and us not following God.
That, and at the same time, it's perfect because God created it and you can't possibly understand it. And so like it has to remain the same.
And all the human level stuff is the result of us and our flawed nature and our sinful nature. So there's no way we can change it. We see that we're responsible, but at the same time, we're the victim to it. And it's because we're participating in this pattern that there's an ultimate thing that takes responsibility. If that was never in our minds and we never considered that, we would just be like, this is something we are doing to ourselves collectively. I may not be directly doing it, but now I have to look at how I'm individually participating in it, allowing it. Now I have to take more responsibility than just my survival. I got to go beyond that and get other people to work together to change this thing. And then you start going into all that, and it's like, well, but how does any of this guarantee that I exist after I die and there's going to be a heaven? It doesn't. But you got to realize neither does this faith that you're having.
Right.
It's
like you're putting your faith in the wrong
something
thing.
You're hoping in. It's not real. You got to realize that if you were born into a world where it was truly a loving environment, you would just see yourself as reality and reality as you and others. And it would be like, this is amazing.
It's putting your faith in the wrong thing. And what I mean by that is you've been duped into putting your faith into something outside of yourself. And you have to have faith within yourself of like, I trust myself. I trust that I'm going to do what is best. And I can trust that because here's my track record. And I do that, and I don't participate in the fantasy and abdicating responsibility. That's the real faith. And really, you only need that faith to start out. And then once you start out and you get that track record, it's not really faith anymore. It's like, I'm doing it. I'm creating it. I can see myself doing it. And like, you just continue on and don't stop.
Because if you don't stop, why would you ever lose? The only way you can think that you would lose, even if you tried your very best, is if you believe reality is against you. And if that's the case, you're like, so the only person who can save us from that is God. But let's go back to your assumptions. God created all of it. So why did he create those? Well, because we didn't follow God. Well, then why would you be punished if you put your full faith in like yourself that you're going to work out the best system possible for everybody? Really, really do some introspection of like, why would God punish for that? Why would his point be like, no, I just want you to obey me. I'm just so beyond you. You can't figure it out. Because then again, we start to come into all the contradictions of, okay, well, how do you know which God it is then? If God is so far beyond you, maybe it's so far beyond your intellect that in reality, God is the most evil thing and wants you to die and suffer and be tortured. And he even fucks you up by making you think that love is the thing you should go for, because that would torture you more. And you're like, well, that doesn't make any sense. I'm like, maybe it's the thing that makes the least sense. Well, it should make a little sense. How do you know? You don't understand the mind of God. It's like, well, I know he would be all loving and this. How do you know? You don't understand the mind of God. So it's like you get trapped in this point, but it's easy to get out of the trap if you just go, wait, my assumptions are totally wrong. I am responsible for reality. Not as a singular individual better than anybody else, but as an equal being in reality, we're all equally responsible. We all contribute the exact same amount equally to reality. And if
And-
I can change and I start that process, why couldn't another person? Especially if I'm going to dedicate myself to making it easier for other people to realize that same truth.
Another part of that assumption is like, well, if I attempt to do what is best, then I'm saying I am better than God. I am superior, and he's going to strike me down and be against me and make my life even harder than it is or needs to be or whatever. How does that make sense? If you're actually in earnest, I want to create a world that's best. And it's not like to spite God or anything like who cares about that? But just, to handle that point, like if it's actually in earnest, wouldn't God be like, hey, I see you? Like what's the difference between the person who's actually doing it in earnest? You could even say, because I want to glorify God or whatever.
It would be making his creation actually best. And he's like, that's what I made you for, to do that.
What would be the difference between the one who says that and actually does it, and the one who's like, well, I'm just going to do it?
I don't even know about God. I don't need permission from God.
Right.
I just want to create a world that's
like,
best.
is that a
It's
bad
like,
person? Like, they literally are doing the same exact things and actually like creating a system that's like, hey, we're helping these people get fed and making sure that nobody goes hungry. And like, they're both doing the same thing. What would be the difference? Are you saying that other person, like, oh, they're screwed? Well, that's just too bad. They go to hell. What?
That's why I've always said, if you want to believe in God, as long as you do what's best, that's fine. But then the problem is, if you really investigate what God represents, it represents inequality. That's why I always would say life, because life
Right.
is like the equality within everything. It's not a superior being that's above everybody. It's just the thing that we all equally have. It's the thing actually also that people want to say is the evidence of God. Well, it's the ground of all being. Okay, I mean, yeah, you're getting very technically philosophical here, but now you're also assuming it's a person that's above everybody and superior as well, that takes responsibility for stuff. If you just want to say it's the thing that allows everything to exist, I wouldn't exist without it. What does it mean to exist without it? It's not logically possible to exist without it. So this, you see, that proves God. It's like, no, it doesn't. It proves I can't exist without existence. But what if I just assume I am that? But I'm so fucked up in my mind and all that. Right. So study destiny, walk it back and understand you could have created all of these conditions over time through consequence, like compounding on itself. And even to the point where you're in the current form you're in because of that process. It's actually got all of the Garden of Eden story in it. The problem is the Garden of Eden story, there's that potential to realize, like, I'm responsible for where creation's at right now. Well, I'm not. Adam is. Well, then why am I being punished for it? Well, you're exactly the same. Okay, so I am Adam. So
Right.
I am that being there that was there at the beginning that made that choice. But what was the choice they made, actually? Was it they disobeyed God? Or was it that they didn't use common sense and go, I'm doing something, maybe it's some metaphorical thing, disobeying God, but in reality, it's something that isn't actually best for all. I'm finding out through generations of being reborn that this is the consequence now. So now I can't make the same mistake again and go, well, it's got to be something else out there. It's like, no, the original problem was not realizing I'm responsible for what I create. That was the original point.
That point of view saying like that I'm a part of existence, that I wouldn't exist without existence. Yeah, it's like a thread in your genes. It wouldn't exist without the genes, but also your genes wouldn't exist without that thread. All the threads make up the genes. That's how
But
reality
there's
works.
a thing that is threadness, and without threadness, thread would exist. And it's like, okay, but why is it separate from that thing? Why isn't it just an inherent property of I exist because existence is a thing, and life is me being able to move and choose and act and think and all these different points? But there doesn't have to be some superior being that justifies all of it, because if there is, why would he set things up to allow all of this to roll into motion? How do we get to the point where everything is so messed up that I have to believe in something that doesn't make sense to quell my inner anxieties? It's like things are so intense that I have all this anxiety that it would even generate a need to think about something that can save me from it. Why would I trust that very thing that I'm also saying is the reason why everything exists, but I disobeyed it? It's like this very circular. And again, we could go, okay, let's put Christianity to the side and let's go talk about Buddhism now. Let's go talk about Islam. Let's go talk about a million different other religions that all have the same inherent basic flaws, which is getting the person to, it's like distracting us from going, okay, we are responsible. Not just me personally only, everybody equally. How do we solve this problem? And we're never going to make headway on it if our immediate response is, well, no, you can't. Like, you just got to have your faith in the outside thing that created everything. Like, it's just never going to be solved. The concept of a creator, we've projected that outward, and then we don't take the responsibility as the creator, because we're like, no, creators only create good. Non-creators create bad. Well, they don't create it. They just they just make bad, it's like, so how do we make the good stuff? We got to have that creator come in. It's not
Right.
me. It's not
Right.
me. That's the key point. I don't think we have time to finish the actual thing.
No,
So
was there
let's
anything
just
at the
do
end that you knew of that was like we should hit
It's-
that point?
It's kind of irrelevant, actually. I mean, I think we got a lot of good stuff in here, but
I thought so too. I really like this conversation. We should do more.
that's really the point of it, is just to get all this across, right? So we'll do more of these, obviously, but okay, why don't we leave it at that? And I'm sure we'll find some more Father Mike Rowe or somebody else to criticize later. Actually, before we go, Self-Perfected Hangouts on Self-Perfected on the Facebook group. You can look that up. I'm sure it'll be in the comments of whatever this is posted on. Podcast every Sunday at 9:15 a.m. Live on X. It's also on Rumble. There's a lot. These are just like the entry points. Our podcast, the Hangouts. There's a lot more to all of what we're doing, and other people, community, and so forth. But if you like what you're hearing, and it's kind of sparking some like, oh, maybe there's something beyond all the things I've heard my entire life. There's like actually a solution to all the stuff in this world. Like, that's what we're all about. We'll see you in the group. Bye.
Self-perfected. Making things clear.